What's going on, everyone, and welcome into Plaisant's podcast filled to the brim with glitchy analysis and freezing cold takes, so cold that they're boiling hot. Today's episode, we're continuing our college football preview, and right now, we're going to preview the Auburn Tigers football season. Let's get started with the star players to look out for on the offensive side of the ball. Jarquez Hunter. This guy has been an X factor for Auburn over the last couple of years, and this is his breakout season as the bona fide running back number one. I firmly believe this guy's going to have over 1,000 yards. He had 900 and something last year, so definitely the star player on offense. On the defensive side of the ball, I would look out for the corner Keontae Scott. I think that he's probably one of the better corners in the entire SEC, maybe in all of college football. And he is going to have a massive workload this year because this Auburn defense is once again in a rebuild. But let's talk about where this program is at right now. Last season, they hired Hugh Freeze, and the offense is getting an entire remake, and we could definitely see that last year. The Auburn offense was one of the worst in the entire country, especially one of the worst in the SEC. I think we're going to see some improvement, but we'll talk about that a little later on. Now let's talk about the key losses and the key gains for this program. Losses, not really any. Auburn didn't lose, any X factor guys, first round picks or anybody to the portal. I mean, obviously they had, bench players transfer out, but those aren't guys that are going to impact wins and losses this season. The additions. Auburn brings in one of the best receivers in the country, the number 5 overall recruit from last year's class, Cam Coleman. He will immediately be plugged into the starting lineup. This is going to be a premier guy for Auburn this year, next year, and the next, and then he'll be a first or second round pick in the draft 3 years from now. On the other side of the wide receiver group, you have Keandre Lambert-Smith, a transfer from Penn State. Didn't have a ton of yardage there, but still a very talented guy in an Auburn receiving room that is devoid of talent. I definitely think he will be an instant impact player and be somebody that quarterback Peyton Thorne can look out for. I expect him to have probably 700 to 800 yards this season. Cam Coleman, on the other hand, we could see him go anywhere from 500 yards to 1,200. This guy is so unbelievably talented. He will definitely be an impact player for this Auburn team. Now let's talk about a couple of other big storylines. I've already touched on it a little bit. This is a brand new Auburn receiving corps. They bring in 5 senior transfers and 2 5-star freshmen. They will probably all be in the rotation, but I think that Peyton Thorne, the quarterback from last season, obviously is going to keep his job this year. This Auburn team is going to look completely different in the passing game, and that moves me to my next point. We should, keyword is should, see offensive improvement. Like I said, this offense was atrocious last year. Unbelievably bad. I think if we don't see improvement, there are some major questions behind this coaching staff. Hugh Freeze, a known offensive mind of college football, has got to put something together to make this Auburn offense competent. I think that he can do it, but if we don't see it, like I said, major red flags flying everywhere. However, the last point I want to make, this is still a rebuild. Hugh Freeze got this job last year. This Auburn program went through so much turmoil with Brian Harsin, their coach from a couple of years ago, who only lasted I think a year and a half maybe. Auburn is still paying 2 football coaches to not coach football for them. I think that we have to give Hugh Freeze at least another year before he gets in his 2024 and 2025 recruits fully into the system. Auburn is going to need a new quarterback. They got a 4-star in their recruiting class this year. We'll see him probably get a few reps in some blowout games this year. Let's talk about the record, though. Most important part of this series that we're doing. First game, Alabama A&M. I'm just going to go ahead and chalk it up. That's a W. It's almost impossible to find an SEC team that loses to an FCS opponent. Next game versus California. Now, Auburn played this game last year at California, and they only won, I think, 14-10, but it's at home in Jordan-Hare. The Auburn offense hopefully will be improved. I think that Auburn can get this win. And then next up, they've got versus New Mexico at home. Now, last year, they lost to New Mexico State 31-10 at home. I don't see that happening again. I'll give Auburn the win here, and then I will follow it up with yet another win versus Arkansas at home. This Arkansas team, I mentioned them in my video before. Shambles, incomplete shambles, and I don't expect them to be able to put together a road win here. Auburn will take this one, but then the disappointment begins. Versus Oklahoma, I think they can come into Jordan-Hare and get a win. At Georgia, at Missouri, at Kentucky, all extremely tough games to start, and then add on the fact that they're on the road. I think Auburn is lacking in offensive talent to compete with these three teams. Chalk up those as 3 losses. But following that, they get a break in the schedule before their last 2 massive games of the season versus Vanderbilt and versus Louisiana Monroe. Auburn wins on every single part of the game plan here, offensively, defensively, coaching-wise, and then on top of that, they're at home. 2 easy W's. To follow that up, versus Texas A&M at home, I think Texas A&M is either the 3rd or 4th best team in the SEC. Auburn is definitely not up there. However, I will put this game on upset alert. I think Auburn could definitely do magical things in Jordan-Hare at the end of the season. We've seen it time and time again. But to recap, we got Auburn right now at 6-5. That's not too bad. But the Iron Bowl is last. It's at Alabama in Tuscaloosa, and I do not see them winning this game. I will give them a loss, put them at 6-6 on the year. However, that's not improvement from last year. I think we're going to see more competitive games from the Auburn Tigers this year. And that's what you look for going from year 1 to year 2 into year 3. Next season will be, quote unquote, the year for Auburn to actually compete for an SEC title or maybe a college football playoff spot. But this is not the year. 6-6 is what I give them. That's going to do it for my Auburn college football playoff preview. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.